We are currently witnessing a generational superstar rise to stardom in the NBA with what Victor Wembanyama has been doing this season. Wemby, as the #1 pick in the 2023 draft, had sky-high expectations as a rookie, and he exceeded those. In year 2, those expectations were even higher, and he's currently exceeding those as well. And we've seen time and time again stars that have just way too high of expectations fall short of those, but Wemby has been the exception, as he has just been on another planet, no pun intended to his alien nickname, this year in his sophomore season. Like I said, Wemby exceeded his rookie expectations last year, where he averaged 21.5 points, 3.6 blocks, 1.2 steals, and shot 46% from the field and 33% from three. He ended up winning the Rookie of the Year award in unanimous fashion, as well as finishing runner-up in Defensive Player of the Year voting this year. Wemby has been even better. He's gone from 21.5 points to 25 points per game this year. He had 3.5 blocks per game last year. We thought those were already an unsustainable amount. Well, yeah, he's averaging 4 blocks per game this year, leading the NBA again, 1.1 steals, over 10 rebounds, just around 4 assists, and the efficiency has gone up, 48% from the field, 35% from three on 9.5 attempts a night. He is taking 4 more threes per game, and he's also shooting 88% from the free throw line, about 9% of an increase from his sophomore season. We're also seeing him go up in advanced analytics as well. Last year's true shooting percentage at a 56%, this year at a 61%. His block percentage has gone up. His three-point rate has skyrocketed from 33% last year to 50% this year. And we're just seeing him become even more of a data darling. 4.7 offensive box plus minus, 7.8 box plus minus. He's turning the ball over less, and this is all on a lower usage percentage than what we saw from him last year. And it was a little bit shocking when the NBA decided to leave off teams like the OKC Thunder or the Houston Rockets on Christmas Day, and instead put on a team that had a 35 preseason win total projection, is around 500 on the year, and that being the San Antonio Spurs, for the main reason to be able to watch Victor Wembanyama on Christmas Day, and he did not disappoint. Wemby on Christmas Day against the New York Knicks put up 42 points, 18 rebounds, 16 of 31 from the field at a 51% rate, and also knocked down 6 threes on 16 attempts, which is 37% from three. He had 4 blocks and 1 steals, and he definitely was the talk of the town on Christmas Day and did not disappoint in his Christmas debut. He was even so good on Christmas Day, he's now #3 all-time in most points in your Christmas game debut. Wilt Chamberlain had 45 points back in 1959, T-Mac 43 in 2000, and Wemby 42 this year against the Knicks in the biggest arena and most popular arena in the NBA in Madison Square Garden. In that game against the Knicks, he also became the first player in NBA history to record 40 plus points, 15 plus rebounds, 5 plus three-pointers made, and over 4 blocks in a game. It just feels like every night Wemby is setting some type of record. And yeah, he is still 20 years old. He does not turn 21 until next week. And we're seeing him play like a borderline top 5 player in the NBA this season. I think we were even going to be impressed if Wemby had a top 15 season this year and he ended up on an All-NBA third team. Right now, Wemby is definitely on All-NBA second team and could end up on All-NBA first team the way he's playing. And he's also one of the more popular players in the NBA as well. The NBA recently came out with the top 10 most viewed players in the 2025 season so far across all of social media. LeBron was 1, Ja Morant was 2, and Wemby was 3. And like I just said, he's 20 years old. This is his second year in the NBA. This year, Wemby also has a higher three-point percentage than James Harden, who's second all-time in 3 points attempted, Devin Booker, LaMelo Ball, Luka Doncic, Tyrese Halliburton, and Jamal Murray. And people want him to stop taking threes. Well, why should he? He has been an elite three-point shooter this year for the volume he is taking, and his shot profile has allowed him to become more of a versatile scorer in this league. His average shot is 17.3 feet away from the basket this year, which also makes sense because of the volume threes he's taking, but Wemby is also taking longer twos. His average two-pointers are a foot deeper, and the percentage of his shots at the rim has dropped pretty drastically from 37% last season to 29% this season. And maybe the Spurs are allowing Wemby to have this different type of shot diet just because it could result in a more conservative injury approach, because around the rim you can land on an ankle, you can get banged up down there, that we've seen from time to time from noticeable big men in the NBA. So keeping Wemby as far away from the hoop as possible could result in a less likelihood for a noticeable injury for somebody that doesn't have the most safest frame in the world. He's 7'3", he's only 210 pounds, and we've seen guys like Kristaps Porzingis in a similar frame have season-ending injuries in the past. So maybe keeping Wemby furthest away from the basket can drop the likelihood of a major injury like that a ton. Wemby's attempting about 7 catch-and-shoot threes a night, and he's shooting 37% on those catch-and-shoot threes. And obviously Chris Paul, one of the best playmakers of all time, and one of the best just team risers, where no matter where he goes, he just makes the team so much better than what they were the year prior, has helped Wemby's development a ton. And now you're looking at the Spurs as one of the premier destinations in the NBA because you get to play with one of the most exciting talents in Victor Wembanyama. And Wemby's the only player in NBA history to be averaging 25 points, 10 rebounds, making 3 threes, and having 4 blocks per game this season. And of all players in NBA history, only Kareem, David Robinson, Shaquille O'Neal, and Karl-Anthony Towns are doing what Wemby is doing this year, averaging 25 points, 10 rebounds on 60+% true shooting percentage. Those are some all-time greats in terms of just overall talent in the NBA and offensive talent, and Wemby is doing this in year number 2 because you're also adding in somebody that is averaging 4 blocks per game and just being someone that's going to win Defensive Player of the Year in just year number 2. Just think about how many awards Wemby is going to win in his career because he could just get All-NBA second team, All-Star, and Defensive Player of the Year in just year number 2. That is mind-blowing, and that is somebody that is exceeding already sky-high expectations. And if you look at what Wemby is doing defensively, just compared to the history of the NBA, and you look at players that in a season have had 4 blocks per game, over a steal a game, and over 8 defensive rebounds per game, you're talking about Hakeem Olajuwon, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, David Robinson, and Patrick Ewing. Those are some of the greatest big men in NBA history, and these are some of their prime seasons as well. This is when Kareem was 28 and 31, Hakeem was 27, 29, and 30, David Robinson was 26, Patrick Ewing was 27, and yeah, Wemby is just 20 years old. He's going to be 21 years old at the end of the year, and if you look offensively and compare it to these guys as well, he is just becoming so much more of a versatile scorer with his three-point shot, as he's shooting 35% from 3 this year. The other players in this list, if they took any threes, were shooting around 25% or 10% from 3. Because when we compare modern day big men to the great big men of the 90s like Robinson and Ewing and Olajuwon, Wemby is starting to clear them in some statistics. And then you got to look back on some of the greatest big men in NBA history like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who put up video game numbers back then. He is second all time in scoring, and this is what Wemby is doing, comparable to what one of the greatest players ever, Kareem, was doing in his prime. This is year 2 for Wemby. I don't know if we can really comprehend how mind-blowing what he is doing in year number 2. And with the Spurs having a plethora of draft capital right now, having some picks left over from the DeJounte Murray trade from Atlanta, they do own a Hornets first-round pick in that trade as well. Chicago has a first-round pick that can go to the Spurs. They own all of their draft picks. They own a Minnesota Timberwolves draft pick from the 2024 draft down the line as well in the 2030s. Same with a Sacramento Kings first-round pick in the 2030s to help orchestrate the DeMar DeRozan sign and trade in the previous offseason, and add in a ton of young talent like Stephon Castle, Jeremy Sohan, Malachi Branham, Devin Vassell, Keldon Johnson. Those guys can also be exciting trade assets in this league as well, because the Spurs can add almost anybody to pair up with Wemby, and why wait? This player is playing like a top 10 player in the NBA as a 20-year-old, and with a veteran point guard like Chris Paul, you could actually make a deep playoff run this year if you're able to go out and get one of the more exciting names on the trade market. Because what if De'Aaron Fox becomes available? Or you think somebody like Brandon Ingram or Zion Williamson could be an exciting add to this team? The sky's the limit for the Spurs. Those are just relatively, I think, easy pieces for them to get if these players became available. But what if they aim higher? What if somebody like Devin Booker becomes available, or Giannis Antetokounmpo in the future? I know I'm just kind of fantasizing right now, but you can really add a top 10 or 15 player to this team because of the assets they have and because of how exciting it is to play with Wemby, because there's no state tax in Texas. You're playing with one of the more exciting young stars in the league under one of the most respected coaches in the league as well in Greg Popovich. So I just think it's one of the best times to be a San Antonio Spurs fan right now, and I think we all need to appreciate and not take for granted what Victor Wembanyama is doing this year in just year number 2, because imagine what he's going to be doing in year number 6, 7, 8, and onwards.